anytime somebody tells me no, that's just simply my code for, okay, you said no, that really means you mean on. And so I'm turning it on and I'm going forward.
This is Debbie, and welcome to another episode of The Offbeat Life, where I speak to inspiring individuals who ditch the norm to become location independent. We'll learn how to create sustainable laptop lifestyles from the experts that will help us achieve freedom from our 9 to 5. Hey friend, are you looking to land a remote gig ASAP? Well, did you know that we not only have a ton of online jobs you can apply to on our site, but now we are also sending them straight to your inbox. I'm happy to announce that we will be sending our email subscribers legit online jobs every Wednesday. We have done hours of research, so you don't have to. If you want to be the first one to hear about the remote gigs we find, go to theoffbeatlife.com to subscribe. On this episode, I speak with Dr. Annise Mabry, who is an academic pioneer for online learning and the founder of the Dr. Annise Mabry Foundation. The foundation's mission is to develop and implement creative community-based strategies that provide the framework for economic opportunity and development. So listen on to find out how Dr. Annise Mabry has been able to build online courses that provides communities with supportive homeschool learning. Hey everyone, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to speak with today's guest, Dr. Annise Mabry. Hey, Dr. Annise, how are you?
Hey, Debbie, I'm good. How are you?
I am great. I am really excited to talk to you today. Can you tell us more about you and why you live an offbeat life?
Well, I am Dr. Annise Mabry, and I have really been living an offbeat life since 2000. I was probably one of the early academic pioneers for online learning. And when I first started online teaching and learning, everyone told me that it was a fad and they didn't understand why I was investing so much time and why would I even go get a master's degree in this, because it was just going to be something that was gone in 5 years. And fast forward to 2020, 20 years later, in the middle of COVID-19, and I have built probably more online courses for different universities. And I've had the opportunity to be in so many different places that a traditional classroom wouldn't have allowed me. And for my family, it's given us an opportunity to truly live life and not just do life in our community, but live life in the world.
What made you decide to really hone in on this and start creating all of these courses?
I think for me, I was married at the time, and my ex-husband was a narcotics detective with the Tri-Cities Narcotics Unit, and we were both police officers. I had just had a baby. We woke up one day and it kind of hit us that, oh crap, both of us are police officers. If something happens, then our child is going to be left with no one. So one of us had to make a decision to live a different life. And of course, that one of us was me. And then I wanted something that would allow me the flexibility to be at home with my daughter. Because, I just couldn't see having her and going back into the workforce full time. I needed something that was going to fit into the life that I was building, not the other way around.
Yeah. And one of the ways that you were able to do that is creating all of these courses for somebody like you who is a parent, right? And there's a lot of stay-at-home parents out there who maybe want to do homeschooling, and you were able to help all of these people in different types of households. What was your motivation for that? Did you see anything with your own community that maybe allowed you to go into that trajectory with what you wanted to do?
I think for me, my children have always been my greatest launching pad, so to speak. And I dove into homeschooling because my daughter, when we first relocated to a new area, the school systems, when we got there, they were really good. And by the time my daughter was entering middle school, it was like somebody flipped the switch, and the school systems that were really good became really horrible. And she ended up being the victim of severe bullying. And as a result of being bullied so severely, she developed post traumatic stress disorder and schizoaffective disorder. So the mere fact of sending her back into a classroom was a trigger for her. And I had to find a tool that would give her not only education, but would also create a pathway for her to do something. I call it the and now what? Now that you're getting a high school diploma, now what are you going to do? So I needed a now what bridge for her, and I didn't have the luxury of having a public school system to support me. And the area that we were in, we didn't even really have any private schools that I wanted to send her to.
Now, when you decided that this was something that you really wanted to get into, how did you prepare for this? And how did you make sure that what you were going to be teaching your daughter at home is what she needed?
That's a great question. And Debbie, I think for me, the way that we prepared for it was I brought my daughter in on all of the conversations, and we designed what she wanted her curriculum to look like together. I kind of gave her the skeleton of, okay, you've got to have 4 English classes, you've got to have 4 math classes, you've got to have 4 science classes. But what those classes look like, you can determine those for you. Do you want to do marine biology, or do you want to do regular biology? Do you want to do chemistry, or do you want to do a combination of organic and earth chemistry? I allowed her to dictate what her classes were. And once she selected what she wanted to learn, then I went out and I set the pathway for finding the resources and building it into an online environment, because she was in and out of the adolescent mental health care facilities a lot. So I needed something that was going to be very mobile. I needed something that she could essentially manage her own coursework, because remember, I'm still trying to work, and I've still got bills to pay, and I've got a child in the hospital who has to manage her own schooling.
I love that you are giving her these choices and she's become an independent person because of this, right? Because I think a lot of times when children go to school, there's no choice. It's like being in a prison. You do this, you do that. You have no choice on what you can learn. You're going to do bad. You're going to do well. That's what we decide what you do and how you're going to do with it. So it's great that you actually sat down and talked to her about this before creating the curriculum.
Absolutely. And I know from myself in working with adult learners tend to do better when they have some control over their learning. And the same thing applies for our non-adult learners, for our children. People do better when they have some type of control over what they're learning and how they're learning it.
So once you got these curriculums for your daughter, how did you transition it to become something bigger, into a bigger business that you made for yourself and creating all of these online courses?
What happened for me with my daughter is when I was in the process of trying to build her classes, there was one particular class that she wanted from an independent publisher. And this independent publisher, I went to them, I told them what I was doing. At this point, I'm affiliated with the university. I was a online faculty manager for new faculty members. And I said, hey, I need to purchase some of your K-12 curriculum for my daughter. And this particular curriculum provider said, we will not sell to you. We will only sell to school districts and nonprofit organizations. I said, oh, okay. Well, hold on. Let me go build a nonprofit organization and I'll be back. And this particular provider thought that I was joking. And in 6 months, I had my nonprofit foundation up and running. And not only did I just go buy curriculum, I bought 200 licenses of the curriculum. And once I bought 200 licenses, I didn't need all 200 licenses, but I also knew that there were other families like me who needed access to this curriculum and they couldn't get it.
Wow, that is amazing. I mean, that's pretty much where you start off, right? It's a no, and then you turn it into a hell yes, and you turn it into something bigger than that and bigger than what you ultimately thought what you were going to be doing, which is incredible.
Yeah, I always joke. I say, if you tell me no, I'm going to turn it into a go and I'm going to steamroll over you in the process.
So once you decided that this is going to be something that you were going to get into full time, Dr. Annise, did you have a what now moment after you had all of these licenses? And what was that like for you?
Oh my God, Debbie, I had so many what now moments. Sometimes I would be sitting there and I'm like, okay, God, did you really tell me to do this? Did I hear you, or was I just so arrogant that I was listening to my own self? Because it wasn't easy. Some of the struggles that I had, people doubted me. And I'm like, I'm sitting there looking at them like, hello, I'm the one that develops the online classes for universities. Hello, I'm the one that teaches teachers how to teach. So why would I not be able to homeschool my own child? Do you not see that I have a PhD and 5 master's degrees? Actually, I have 2 PhDs. So it's like, why are y'all questioning me again? But it's because I was doing something that was so outside of the norm. And the other thing is, when most people think about homeschooling, they have this preconceived idea in their head of what homeschooling is. Homeschooling is simply taking education and making it fit your family, not the other way around. So I think those were some of my biggest challenges in terms of turning this into a nonprofit organization. Remember, Debbie, I started my nonprofit because I got mad. I started a nonprofit with no real experience in working in nonprofits. I mean, the only thing I'd ever done is I'd worked in education, and I'd worked in for profit education at that. So a nonprofit was a whole new world for me. I quickly had to figure out how to create bylaws. I had to figure out how to build my own budget, how to, I knew how to write grants because I'd written them at the university level. I'd never written nonprofit grants. So, what does that look like? And how do you navigate that? And how do you build a business plan for a nonprofit? Because every time I would ask somebody, I need a business plan for this nonprofit, they would say, oh, well, you're a nonprofit. You're not a real business. And it's like, yeah, a nonprofit is a real business. We just don't sit on the profits at the end of the year. We reinvest them into the community. I had a lot of learning to do. And unfortunately, there weren't a lot of resources for the type of nonprofit that I was doing. So again, I'm out here, I'm like, okay, here I go again, building a bridge. And, I used to joke with people all the time. I said, I just want something that's already built that I don't have to build.
Yeah. And that's exactly what you did. You started creating all of these different lifelines for you to start your own company. And now you are educating so many different types of people. And you're right, Dr. Annise, there's so many misconceptions about homeschooling, right? So when my fiance and I was an educator before I started this business, and my fiance is still one. He's a therapist for children with autism. And we tell people all the time, we do not like the public school systems that we have, specifically in New York City. And we were like, we want to homeschool our future children. And people looked at us like we were crazy. And they were like, how are you going to do that? And we were like, we have education, we have all of these background. I think we can do it. And I think because people are so afraid that maybe your kid will turn out weird, there's not going to be any social functions, and they're going to be starved for interaction with their peers, which obviously there's always something around that. And even if you look at people who travel with their children as well, there's always things that you can do for your children and to educate them, but it doesn't have to be in that box that people tell you to do.
Absolutely, Debbie. And the thing that I love the most about homeschooling is, once my daughter finished and she graduated in 2015, I had this incredible program that I had built for her that I was like, it just felt like a disservice to be like, okay, I built this program for my daughter and I'm done. But I didn't know what else to do with it. I always say that when you're on the right path for something, the what next will appear. You don't have to go look for the what next. It just simply appears. And my what next was actually living right next door to me. And her name was Beth. And she had dropped out of the high school. She and my daughter had gone to school together. Beth had gone on to high school in this area. And Beth ended up dropping out of school because she was bullied so severely, just like my daughter. And it was actually Beth that gave me the idea to take this program that I had built for my daughter and use it for adults who had dropped out of school to get a high school diploma. And when I figured out how to do that for Beth, Debbie, my light came on. And I was like,
Yeah.
this is it. This is why I had, this is why I was a police officer. This is why I worked as an elementary teacher. This is why I had all of that experience in working with diverse student populations and at risk populations. Because now the program that I have is the only program in the entire state of Georgia that focuses exclusively on homeless LGBTQ youth, sex trafficking survivors, and high school dropouts to get them an actual high school diploma and not a GED. And the other really cool thing about my program is I work with law enforcement agencies and I operate a cops and community program that spins in this part of the adult diploma part, and we have the Chiefs Diploma program. And again, this is all online. This is still all very offbeat. Who would think to take a homeschool program into a police department and go up to a police chief and say, hey, you've got a high dropout rate in your city. Let's get them some diplomas and let's turn this around.
And you're able to really connect those two things, right? Especially with what's happening today, Dr. Annise, with the authorities and the police not coming together with the community. And that's where a lot of the problems really come from, because we always look at them and we're fearful. But what you're doing is actually bridging that gap to make sure that there's communication there. And you're helping children who may not have a place that they feel that they have in society and even in their schools, right? Because honestly, we should feel the most safe in our schools, right? Because there are people over there who are supposedly going to take care of us. But it's unfortunate that a lot of children who, in that community do not feel that way. Like you said, they're getting bullied and they're not getting the education they need because there's so many other things that they have to go through every single day before they can even get educated, which is really unfortunate.
And that was the biggest thing for me is, when you have a child in an environment where they don't feel safe, you create what I coined a phrase called academic trauma. And academic trauma is simply, it's like any other trauma, but it's related to academics. So if you're in a classroom and you're bullied, then every time you walk into a classroom, even as an adult, that anxiety level for you is going to increase because you remember what it felt like the last time